complexion. All right, so we are live. David, Edey, guys, I appreciate you tuning in this evening. I know it's towards the end of the week, but I appreciate you setting aside this time. We're here. We're definitely going to dive in. I have David, a good colleague I was able to connect with, and we're going to talk about that. Dive a little bit deeper into the estate planning, wills, things of that nature. Real quick. This is your first time joining here on YouTube or in the group, please make sure you subscribe to your YouTube page. Make sure you follow us on Money Talks, dropping all that information. And then also towards the end of the cast and conversation here, we'll make sure we get that information to you to be able to connect with David and support him and even learn more about this. I can't stress, and actually I do talk about it a lot, but one of the toughest things about money once you get it is honestly keeping it. So having this more defensive plan in place to protect your assets, to make sure this is the legacy building part of your financial journey. And that doesn't start once you get a lot of money. It starts. So it's really important that we talk. And that's one of the things that I'm going to have David cover in his conversation. Why is the will? Why is estate planning? What is this? I know it's not the sexiest thing, obviously, but it does help extremely well in the long term. And so, yeah, David, Edey, tell me, thank you, welcome for coming. Please share a little bit about yourself before we get ready into this conversation.
Oh, Jonathan, thanks for having me, and the audience out there as well. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a Certified Executor Advisor. I've been in the financial planning industry for 35 years. And how I ended up here talking about, will and estate planning is the journey that I went through. It was 7 years, 10 court appearances, and $50,000 in lawyer's fees to settle my parents' estate, and they had a will. So, every time, and during that time when I would talk to friends, an executor friend would tell me, I went through that, or another, person in a family says, my family's not talking to each other. And the more I heard about it, I didn't want anybody else to go through it. So I ended up writing the book during the pandemic because I had nothing else better to do.
No, I get it. And it's being in that space, right? This is what you do. What's the importance of the will and estate planning? Obviously, like you just mentioned, you spent a lot of money, but why have the will and why do estate planning at all?
Well, we should back it up. 60% of Americans don't have a will or an estate plan, and it's more likely that a man's going to have a will than women. And then the other thing, and I think it's important, and I've been doing a lot of shows like this, talking to our community, only a third of Black and Hispanics actually have a will. And what I always hear why it's not happening in our community is because they're either avoiding the situation, they're procrastinating, or they're apathetic, meaning they don't care. But I'm going to give a little spoiler alert to everybody out there. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a bit of a surprise. So, and in our community, we hold back and we think it's going to be taboo if we talk about the situation, that it's going to come up and we're going to die. I don't know. Do you watch the show Insecure with Issa Rae?
Yeah. My wife has me catching.
Okay. So are you watching this season?
We haven't. I think we got a couple of episodes.
Okay, so spoiler alert.
The previous season and come back in.
Okay, so spoiler alert. This season, they cover this. Molly goes and talks to her mom about estate planning, and her mother fluffs her off on it. And she says, and she says to her mom, I was sending you to an estate planner, and they're having a party, a little get together, and the mother gives her a piece of paper showing house goes to you, this one on a piece of paper, and that's not an estate plan. Right. And then later on, she calls her, and the mother says, what, I'm sorry. She's saying to her that, I didn't want to press you. And the mother says, what, it's good that you're pressing me, but I'm afraid, and I got to get over this fear. I don't want to spoil the rest of the season, but later on, my mom's going to have a stroke. And so now we've got, clearly you can see that the mother and father don't have wills. And you can't have a meaningful conversation when somebody's on a respirator. Right. So, Molly knows that her parents don't have an estate plan, but the mom's going to come out. But the point is, in our community, we wait to the last minute to do anything. and we don't have the conversations. Molly's mom had 2 strokes, and the father never told the kids. You got to have these conversations. In the white community, all of these things, I mean, they're no better, but we can do better. They're doing slightly better than us, but we can do a lot better to make sure that you were talking about leaving a legacy. You can leave a legacy, but you don't want to leave a legacy and a mess for your family. Because if you don't have an estate plan, you're basically leaving your family in chaos and confusion.
Yeah, it's so good. And like I said, I know me and you kind of had a conversation before. I can't. One of the things that I will say in dealing with money and speaking with a lot of people, and a lot of it comes from my personal experience, right? I will tell you that one of the toughest conversations you're going to have about money with family is the estate piece. Especially, like, I get it. It was hard. It was hard even for me, and I know what I'm supposed. I know I'm supposed to do this thing, but it wasn't until some of the things me and my wife are planning to do, and you guys will see and hear about that over the next few months. But as I started watching some of these things unfold, it really started making me uneasy, and especially now because I have a daughter. But when I went to my mom, I mean, the first thing she much like probably Molly seen in that show, she kind of blew me off. And a lot of times, I mean, what I need that for? Y'all know what to do. And I'm like, just because we know what to do doesn't necessarily mean we're in the position to do it because of how you have to set this thing up. And one of the things that came up in that conversation is, well, how do I know if I have enough assets? Like, my mom, she's not a millionaire or anything like that. So when I brought up the conversation of a will, it was really taking her out of place because she's like, I don't really have anything. What am I going to put on a will for? And so when I started walking down all the things, I'm like, well, do you have a bank account? Yeah. I'm like, well, I know you have X, Y, and Z. I know you have this account over here. I know you have this asset. You may not have a house right now, but I know you have all these different things. It's important that you get that on paper. So how do you know and that you have enough assets to do a will?
Well, you named off, certain things, and that's especially in our community. That's what people are saying all the time. I haven't got any assets. Well, have you got a bank account? Have you got a car? Have you got a house? Have you got some investments? You've got an estate that it doesn't matter the amount. We're not talking. You don't have to be Beyonce or Oprah to have an estate. So, but you have assets. And take it one step further. When you were asking your mom about, for the will, you've got assets, you've got investments. Does your mom shop online? Does your mom have a social media? Does your mother do anything email? She's also got digital assets. Right. So you've got to take in consideration. It's anything you've ever created or you purchased or done online. Everything you've ever done is either in the cloud or sitting on your hard drive. And if you are the only ones who know the passwords and the logins, then you're going to have a problem for your estate, your executor. I have a friend who he was telling me the other day that he knew his buddy had passed away. It's like 2 years ago, and still that buddy is still posting to his Facebook account, even though the guy's gone. So it's not only assets that you have, but it's also these digital assets that you have that's going to make that whole estate come up. And I think the other problem is, even though people don't want to have this conversation and they're afraid, the pandemic has made everybody think about their mortality different. Either they know somebody who passed away, or they see on the news all the time how many people are passing away, and it's made people uncomfortable. And it's okay to be uncomfortable, but you need to have the conversations so that, like I said before, you don't want to leave a legacy and a mess. Mm-hmm. So you want to prepare your family and say, you know what, I've done these things. So in the event something happens, I know that you know where the important papers are, you know where the logins and passwords are, mm-hmm. and it's going to make things easier on you. There's no point to keep all of those things in your head. Like I said before, you don't want to be in intensive care and then find out that your mom or dad doesn't have a will. You're going to have a problem. So, let's get over the point. And I understand it. Even though, like I said, I've been in the financial planning industry for over 35 years. For the longest time, I would always sit in with the clients when they were sitting with the estate planner and have the conversation, stuff like that. But when it came to my own mom and dad, I get it. I couldn't fathom me talking about their demise. And I'll be up front with you, I wasn't in the room when their will was being done. My sister was in the will, in the room with them, because I just couldn't fathom. And then again, it's hard, but it's got to be done. And where we sort of followed down as a family, and how we ended up in court is because even though my parents had a will, they didn't have the conversations with the rest of the siblings and let them know what was going on, because one sibling didn't want to do the right thing.
So yeah, you definitely mentioned some of the conflict that can come from not having a will. But truth be told, and you definitely being in this space have probably definitely seen more than I. What typically happens after a person dies? Without a will, what typically happens?
Okay, so you can go the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is to have a will, and you have an executor who's the person that's going to carry out your wishes, your final wishes, and the estate will be settled. Now, as an executor, you've got 3 goals. You've got to make sure that taxes are paid, because even though you might be dead, you're still going to have a final tax return to pay. Then you're going to pay the beneficiaries, and you're not going to pay out the beneficiaries until all the taxes are paid. And then in the U.S., you want to make sure that you get clearance from the probate court so that the estate is closed. So then you can pay out the beneficiaries. On the flip side, you don't have a will. Now you've got the government takes over. They're going to say how your estate's going to be settled. So, and it takes it one step further. You're a parent. If you're a parent and you've got children and you haven't got an estate plan or you haven't got a will, you've just told the government, I want you to dictate what the future of my children are going to be. And I don't think anybody really wants that if you're as a parent. So you need to figure out, okay, I'm going to have the will. I've got kids. This is the guardian that I pick. And that's another conversation you can have with your spouse. Who would you pick as the guardian? But this is the easier way. Have a will. And again, not leave a legacy and a mess for your family.
Is that like you said, you mentioned if you don't have a will, typically the government takes over, and that's usually in the form of probate. So what is probate?
So probate is just it's a legal term that you're going to have to go through it. It varies from state to state in terms of costs and everything like that. But just on a big picture, it's just a way for them to authenticate the will that you have of the deceased, and that the executor is the one that's in charge. Is going to be carrying out is going to carry out the wishes of the will, and they're going to be they're seen as the officer of the estate. They're the administrator. If you don't have, you're still going to have to go through probate. But if you haven't got a will, now you've just taken the time even longer to settle the estate. So you want to have somebody in there as the executor so you can move the process along. Now, this is the other thing on the flip side. When you're an executor, you have to expect it's going to take at least 100 hours of time to settle the estate. And it can take anywhere from 18 to 24 months. And with COVID, it could be even longer. So if you've been chosen as the executor, then you also have to understand there's a lot of work involved that you've got to be aware of. But again, if you've prepared as the individual who has the will, and you've prepared your executor, how you want things to be done, and letting them know where your passwords are and all the important information is kept and what your wishes are, then it should go a little bit, I'm not going to say it's going to go a lot faster, but it'll be a lot more smoother and a lot easier on the executor. And the executor, and I talk about in the book, I call it the triangle of conflict. If you're an executor and you've got one of these 3 issues, there's no will, which we just talked about, there's a second marriage, or there's siblings and family members who don't get along. If you as an executor have any one of those 3 in there, or even more than one, you've got yourself a big problem, because it just become a larger mess. So if you're going to be executor, you have to go in there with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, it's so good. I thank you for really kind of diving deep in that space of what could potentially happen, because I don't think everyone, and I know, like I said, I shared with you before, I don't think people understand when you die how quickly the notifications, everything happen. So from a banking standpoint, once you die, they know in the hospital, they've notified the Social Security. All this is in the system. So it could be Saturday night. But I guarantee you, if you go try to access that bank account, it's locked because it's automatically triggered by their Social Security number, and anything that has their Social Security number is locked. So if there's no will, no beneficiary, you obviously have to wait a week or so after, and depending, like you said, depending on COVID, how quickly you get that death certificate. That first locks down even just their liquid assets, bank accounts, saving account, checking accounts, saving.
How are you going to pay for the funeral?
Right, and then typically after somebody dies, how quickly does a funeral happen? Usually within a week. Now, if you're following me and you've been watching things, obviously, I want you to have an emergency fund. You'll be able to use some of that to get you weather through the storm. But if your expenses, what if this is out of state? What if you got to pay to fly wherever that person is? What if you got to pay for a lot of different things? That can get pricey. And the fact is, the life insurance, and maybe that person was set up. The life insurance isn't going to come for another 6 to 8 months. You can let that be. It'll come. If you have a policy, it'll come, but it's not going to come when you need it. So you being able to go in and really execute on certain things, especially if your finances are a little bit tight. And let's be honest, for most people, they're not prepared to deal with a death tomorrow. So that increases the activity and that increases the intensity of this event, because first I lost my close family member, friend, whatever the case may be. If you're executive, obviously you have some close relationship with them, and emotionally that's going to take a toll on you. But then the second piece is I'm now stuck because I don't necessarily have the finances to go ahead through with the burial. And then even if you don't have the finances for the burial, or maybe you do have the finances for the burial, all the things we were talking about with the probate and the process by which it gets extended, well, that's not a free process. You still you don't get to go up to somebody and just sign it. Okay, no, you have to pay your way through this stuff. So it's important that you go ahead and do it, but it's especially important that just like everybody needs a budget, everybody needs to have a will. And the reason why you do it early and you do it while you don't have as many assets, because by the time you do have some assets and your portfolio and you got this big business and you're doing all this stuff with your kids, and I mean, you're just killing the game, then it's a regular rhythm of your routine that you're just checking a box, not, dang, now I got to sit down for two, 3 Saturdays, try to go collect all this stuff. This is the framework by which you build wealth properly. And as he said before, you cannot do it properly, but there's going to be consequences, not just for you in the form of fees, but also for the people that come in after you that are trying to help you.
The other thing is, and the other night I was at a business event, and it was a sort of a get together of business owners, and I was talking a little bit on this subject here. And one of the presenters, a Black business owner, she came to me and said, "You know what? I'm glad you're having this conversation. I'm glad you brought this up." She goes, 2 years ago, my brother passed away, had no will, no insurance. And she said he lived out of state, like what you had said is a possibility. And it was her mother, her, and the sister had to get the money. They each had to put in money so that they could bury him, and to take care of all the other assets, other things, other bills that had to come up, because now there's creditors because maybe he owed some money. He's got loans and that sort of stuff like that. But there's no will, and there's no insurance. So she had to put money. She goes, we could afford it. But, she says that there's a lot of people in the community can't afford it. And what are you going to go out and take a loan so you can get a funeral so you can bury them? No, you don't have to do that. Just do some simple steps and just get a will. Like I said, it's not a sexy topic, but it's the most responsible thing. It's the best thing that you can do for your family.
Yeah. And like I said, and then taking it a step further, really, the will is the tactical, I guess you could say. That's what you got to go do. Like, you got to open the bank account, you got to get insurance. Those are the tactical steps. But really, if you could take a moment, and this is not something I really discussed, but really talk about the importance of just having the conversation. Even not just like, I'm married, obviously me and my wife, we're in that stage where the more we talk about it, the easier it really gets to be like, hey, we need to get this. This is how we're going to roll down the wheel. This is how we want things to go. But having that conversation with your parents and trying to really get that understood, and not just your parents, siblings too. You know what I mean? You might have a sibling, they're not married. Hey, do you have a will? Like, what happens if you die? If you're the youngest, what's going to happen? What do you want to happen in this, or making that a little bit normalized? How would you kind of frame that discussion? Because the money thing is tough as it is, but like, obviously we're around Christmas, we're around Thanksgiving, and I know it's not the best thing, but it's one of those things that, like you said, we've been through COVID. Like, we do all kind of have a renewed sense about the fragility of life, and it really starts to make you a little bit more introspective to, okay, what does happen if I die? Well, you know what I mean? I have this stuff, but does it really matter? Well, it does matter. And then if I don't die, what happens if my parents die? We're in my parents' house having dinner. Are we going to be able to do this again? Or, you know what I mean? What if this is the normal thing? What is going to happen with their stuff? Do they have a plan? And maybe they do have a plan. Have you heard about it? Or is it a reason why I haven't heard about it? Or does anybody know about it, type thing? So
there's three types of families. There's the family that's going to avoid the subject altogether, or there's going to be the family that has a will, but they're not going to let anybody know about it. They're going to let the paperwork do the talking. And the only way you're going to know what's going on is when something happens and you get a surprise. Maybe you're the executor, maybe you're not the executor. Maybe they left something. So, you know, they're not saying, and there's no conversation. Then there's the family who's going to have the conversation. Again, the holidays are coming up. You're not going to do it at the Christmas, at the table, saying, pass the turkey. Oh, by the way, Mom, what are you leaving me? That's not maybe the time to do it, but it's a time when all the family's together. If anything, I would say, you know what? Sit around and enjoy, and that's what you do. Sit around and enjoy the people that are there. But in the back of your mind says, you know what? If maybe that, the cousin's not there, or my mom or dad, what would it be like? What would the dynamics be? How would it change? But then after, and another reason you're not going to do it at Christmas dinner is to bring it up is, you know what? People might be a bit liquored up, and
so some other stuff might come out.
Yeah. So, like I said, what did I tell you about the triangle conflict? If you already don't like your cousin, or look at his ways
for a reason,
why are you asking Mom about the house, or what do you have in mind? What are you up to? So again, and you've had a couple of drinks, don't do it at Christmas. Wait a day or two, and you know what? And bring it up. But it's not a conversation that you're going to have 2 days after Christmas on the 27th, and it's done and over with. It should be the start. So, you know what, Mom? And I think in your case, let's say in your case, you say, you know what? What's your wife's name?
Algie. Yeah.
Algie?
Yeah.
Okay. So we just, what we did over the year, and we're thankful for it. We put together our estate plan, and we did a lot of things. And we just want to let you know. So, by the way, what have you done? And that opens it up. Or you might say, hey, did you hear what's going on in the Prince estate? Can you believe he didn't have all that money? He didn't have a will. And what do you think about that? I mean, just you got to broach the subject and open it up. Okay, if you're having it with the parents, and see where they're at, because you don't want to find out when they're in the hospital. Hey, they don't got nothing. So you want to broach it, and it's the starting point, because it's an ongoing process. And that's what I'm saying. The third kind of family is going to have the conversations because they want the family to stay together, They want the assets, whatever it could be, to be passed on to the next generation. A lot of, when it comes to transfer of any kind of wealth, any kind of money, house, whatever it is, it usually doesn't go past the second generation. So in my case, parents didn't have the discussion, so it hasn't gone to the next generation, which would be my son. So you want to have those conversations, start it, and this is what we've done. Hey, did you hear what's went on with Prince or something like that? Just get it going. And then, well, if you're having trouble, coming up with an idea, I can put you in touch with an estate planner, or why don't we talk about what you have in mind or some of that. But you also could have the other conversations with your siblings if you get along with them, and try and get them and say, we need to talk to mom and dad. I'm looking at them. If something was to happen, what are we going to do? Because if something is to happen and they haven't got anything set up, it's going to be on the kids that they're going to have to take care of them. And are you prepared for that? And on top of that, people's emotions will get out of whack, and things are going to be said and things are going to happen that weren't foreseen for, because there's no sort of plan. There hasn't been any conversations. Think about how you want the family to proceed, for the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And you've got all those young kids at the table there. You want the generation to say, oh, we had those conversations. We talked about sort of thing. And that's what the wealthy white families do, some of them. Not the TV show Succession, because what's Succession about? That's all it is about an old man about to die,
right?
And he can't even pass on the business to the rest of the family, because they're all a mess.
Yeah, they got problems.
They got issues, but every family's got issues. My family got issues. Your family everybody got issues. Yeah. So, but it depends on how you want to handle those issues and go forward in terms of talking about the important things and have those conversations. Yeah, you don't want to have you say, well, I don't need to talk about this. Everybody gets along. You have no idea how they're going to behave when you're not there.
Exactly.
You have no idea. And believe me, you have no idea. There's a saying, you have no idea how someone's going to behave when you have to share an inheritance with them. Mm-hmm. And I know, believe me, and I've heard stories. So you want to have that conversation, but I don't do it at the Christmas table. But it's a good starting point.
Yeah, definitely. More so because the feeling is still kind of resonating after you just left. And another good example was, as you were talking, Knives Out. That was another good film. Knives Out. That's has the gentleman.
Yes, that's right. Knives Out too. Yeah,
Knives Out. Great example of the execution of a will, what happened after, and how he was making decisions for those next steps, and what happens again after he died. All those people, some of them had some messed up situations, but it was still a testament to, hey, he got to a point where he had saw enough. He was like, hey, I'm going to go this route, and I'm going to give it to the person who took care of me, who I know is going to be diligent and use it to prosper further. But you did bring up a good example with the Prince and Aretha Franklin and gentleman from the Black.
Okay, so so you said Prince and Aretha Franklin. Two mistakes you don't want to do. Prince had no will.
No will.
Aretha Franklin, she had a will, but she had a handwritten will, which is like junk. Because you know why? She had 4 handwritten wills. So what can possibly go wrong with her beneficiaries? Mm-hmm. Now I've got 4 wills, and they're trying to figure out which way to go. So you want to make sure you've got a legal will done by a lawyer. Yes, it's going to cost a couple $100. It's not going to cost you thousands of dollars, because you're not Oprah, you're not Beyonce. So Get over yourself and spend a couple $100 and save your family a lot of anguish. If the kids want to make sure that they stay together, and they, you know what, maybe there's a Christmas present there. You know what? We're going to spend an hour or two and chip in together to have an estate plan done for you, mom and dad. That's what you could do. That's the best gift you can give to them, and it's the best gift that they can give to you, because they're letting their wishes known going forward. They want the family to stay together.
Yeah, and even I would tell you that one of the things that, again, from a finance aspect, one thing that we found out is one of the benefits we have from our employer, it covers some legal aspects, and we can actually get a will done through our like they have a network
group plan. Yeah.
That because we're paying for this service, we're able to go get those things done to at least get you started.
I can see if that's part of your benefits package at work.
Yeah,
you can get that done.
Great
it's a gift that you could give to your parents.
Yeah. So good. So as you were there, where can I go to create a will? Now I know there are some online sites. I question a little bit of the validity of how much that thing is going to hold up. But
it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
At least you've got something. But even if you do an online will, and I'm not going to go yes or no because everybody's situation is different, but at least you've got something.
Okay.
Having said that, the nuances of, maybe there's something that you want to leave particular to somebody or something. Maybe you're not going to express it properly and, just by the plug and play type of will. But there's nothing wrong with it. You could go with that. Like I said, shop around in your community and see if there's an estate planner and find out, what would it charge, what would it cost? But don't go there and sit there and look at them and say, well, what do I do now? Go there and be prepared. Mm-hmm. So that you've got, there's a ton of, there's like 10, in my book, I've got 10 questions that you should be prepared to ask. Who's going to be your executor? If you have minor children, who would you name as the guardians? Who are your beneficiaries? Who would be your patient advocate? That's another thing. You want to have a living will if something was to happen. Do you have any charities that you want to give to? Is there any personal property or like an artwork, your Prince collection of CDs or whatever? Do you have any pets? That's big. A lot of people have pets, and people don't think about that when it comes to their estate plan. In the eyes of the law, your furry friend, which he's part of the family, he's seen as property. And if you as an executor have you haven't got any which way you want what's going to happen to the pet, or if somebody isn't going to take it, that pet will end up at the SPCA. So I don't know if you want that, but if you don't have a will, that could happen. So you want to make sure that's mentioned in the will as well. Again, Oprah did put aside a huge amount of cash and trust for the care of her pets. Mm-hmm. Again, at least she's thinking about it. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about an Oprah-sized estate, for you and I. But if you have pets, you want to make sure that they're taken care of. If you have a business, you want to make sure you have a succession plan. Mm-hmm. Yes, you've got the estate plan, but you have the succession plan. The succession plan is to say what's going to happen to the business if something was going to happen to you. Okay. When you have a business and someone passes away and you're the business owner, 3 things can happen. Either you want your family members to take over, either you're going to sell it, or you're going to shut the doors. But if you were on your mind, if something was happening to me, I want to shut the doors, nobody knows because in your head, you're dead. Doesn't matter. So you need to have a succession plan to say what happens to the business. And there again as well, you need to have your digital assets. Because you've got your personal digital assets, but you also have digital assets for your business. So you need to have that organized as well. And again, you want to have a net worth statement when you go see the lawyer. Ooh. And say, whatever, here are my assets, here are my liabilities. So they have a good idea. Save time if whatever they're charging by the hour. Go prepared, and when you sit down with them, so you don't spend a lot of time. That should get you started.
So good. Ooh, he just ran through. Guys, a lot of this stuff, these are things we talk about here all the time. How are you creating a net worth statement? How are you how are you reviewing it? David, also, how often are you updating the will?
I would say on average you should update it every 2 years, or if your circumstances change.
Right.
I mean, if you go through your second or third wife every 2 or 3, 4 or 5, I don't know. Maybe you're going to make the changes then. But every 2 years, just take a look and say, you know what, everything seems the same. It seems okay. If something major has changed, like you started when you wrote the will 2 years or 3 years later, you had 2 kids. Now you got 4 kids. Well, those 4 kids, the other 2 that you had, maybe they're not named in the will. That was a problem for Kobe Bryant. Right. He had his last child wasn't named in the will. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he didn't do the update. he has a estate, and there's trusts and everything like that. But the final child, his last one, she's not named in the trust, so they're working on that. So, all of the issues that everybody has, whether you make a lot of money or you just regular folk, they're all the same when it comes to an estate. Again, do you want to leave a legacy, or do you want to leave a legacy in a mess?
Yeah. Either way, you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna leave one. So it's definitely so good. David, I definitely appreciate your time, guys. This was so good. I've done a lot of these conversations about wills, trust, estate planners, but I will say, and I will commend you, David, on your intelligence in this space, because just you give so much that you think about, or that I never really considered. Digital real estate, the dog. Like, I know people who, you're right, their dog is a part of their plan, their family, and I'm like, man, is that a part of your will? And I never even thought what would happen to your dog. Like, I just thought naturally, you know what I mean? But it's like a kid, it's like an asset. So you need to have a plan for that too. And you know, people.
Well, no, but where your kids, there's a plan for it. For the dog, the state's not going to say, hey, here's what's going to happen to Spot. No, right. Spot's going to the SPCA if there's no, because he's seen his property.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, just that piece of knowledge, not even being aware that's how that's looked at. And knowing how many people, like, they love their pets. So exactly. It's so important. How can people connect with you, David?
You could go to my website, davidedey.com. The book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo. But if you go to davidedey.com, actually I've got on there, you can get the first free chapter of the book, so you can see and the first chapter is about the 10 reasons why you need an estate plan. Mm-hmm. And also on the website, there's a place where you also could get the 50 most common questions that people have as an executor. Just leave your email address and you get have access to that right away. But if you go to davidedey.com, you can everything you need to, and if you have any questions, you can always shoot me an email.
No, it's so good, guys. Guys, if you stay with us, I definitely appreciate your time on this Thursday evening. But it's so important. Take a moment. If you, again, watch it on YouTube, support the channel, subscribe, like, leave a comment, tell me your thoughts. Go check out the book. I definitely am going to read my way through it and keep this conversation going. But it's so important because like I said, I want you guys to make the money. I want you guys to experience what having the freedom that wealth brings. But a lot of people start down that path of wealth building. You usually are thinking about, hey, my kid, couple generations down. And the biggest thing about this wealth piece is 70 to 80% of people that are wealthy, millionaires, all that type of stuff, lose their wealth in the first generation. Now, that can be because they didn't train their kids, but more commonly, it's the will, the trust piece. And if you'll never fully understand unless you get into the situation. But I will tell you, when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to IRS problems, when it comes to anything like that, where the government is starting to control your assets, the fees and the penalties that go with that can dwindle down in the state so quickly. And if for good reason, because once it gets in the government's hand, it's basically saying, hey, you didn't know what to do with this. Well, we got something we can do with it. But it can go so quickly. Like, you'll be like, man, they had a $13 million estate. And then when you get it, it ain't $32 million. You're like, what happened? Fees, penalties, these things are already in play. What you're trying to do is build the wealth, but build it in a protective way. And then as you're doing it, make it a topic of conversation. Will is a huge conversation in the wealth building process. The Constitution, how you live and govern your life. These are conversations that people have of their family value. But the will, hey, we have a will. This is where our will is. This is how you access it. You're getting this. You're doing this. If you're not getting this, this is why. There isn't no question. So if somebody leaves everybody knows what was going on, what happened. So even if I'm a little bit too emotional, brother, sister, whoever, be like, well, we already decided this is the plan. And you may not want to hear that right now, but this is how we're going to do it. So it's so important to really get your will and your financial estate in place. That's something you can do today. And if you haven't done it, it should have been done like yesterday. So, like I said, just don't delay any further, because what you don't want to.
Jonathan, if I could point, I would just say, you know what? We're going through the holidays. We're having this great conversation. A lot of great information. Why not make this your first resolution in January? You know what? During the holidays, think about what you would want to accomplish, but with your estate and getting organized. But that should be maybe your number one resolution, next to losing weight and being a better person. How about adding, make sure I get my will and estate plan set up for 2020.
If you got that list, if you get your will and estate plan, that helps you with the be better person part. So you can hit 2, you can give yourself 2 check marks on that one. So no, I definitely appreciate, David. It's an honor to have you here. Guys, feel free to reach out. I'm going to drop David's. I'm going to get his information. I'm going to definitely upload it. Make sure you guys can get in contact.
And Jonathan, if you want to have me back again and you got more questions, I'd be more than happy to come back, because this is a lot of fun.
Guys. We have to get this done right. We have to get these things in place. I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.